Tonight, raising the cap. President Biden allowing more refugees into the United States after bipartisan blowback. And
I confessed Christ and received him as my personal Lord and Savior.
A criminal past with hope for reform. The Supreme Court case that will determine sentencing under the First Step Act. Plus, the surge.
Things will be horrible for the next several weeks.
20 million COVID-19 infections in India. This as the United States marks a turning point in the fight against the virus. And Catholic bishops decide whether to press the president to stop taking communion over his views on abortion. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation.
President Biden walks back his plan for refugees. Welcome to Faith Nation. I'm Jenna Browder.
Good evening. I'm John Jessup. After bipartisan pushback, President Biden is set to quadruple the number of refugees allowed into the United States.
The White House now raising the all-time low cap of only 15,000 refugees put in place by the former Trump administration. CBN News senior international correspondent George Thomas has more.
Although the president may have felt pressure to allow an additional 47,500 refugees into the country this year, his decision is welcome news to faith-based agencies working to resettle these vulnerable people.
We're supposed to serve the widow, the orphan, the foreigner. Well, hey, we've got the opportunity right now.
One such group is Bethany Christian Services, which had to cut outreach and even offices as refugee numbers dwindled under the Trump administration.
It's sending the right message that, you know what, the United States is open again for refugees.
The White House reversal coming after the president faced intense backlash from some congressional Democrats and human rights groups over his first announcement, leaving the Trump administration's ceiling of 15,000 refugees in place.
President Biden had said back in February that he planned to raise and lift the refugee cap. His administration notified Congress of their intention to do that back in February, but they never did.
Biden calling Monday's decision part of reasserting American leadership and American values. It is important to take this action today to remove any lingering doubt in the minds of refugees around the world who have suffered so much and who are anxiously waiting for their new lives to begin, the president said in a statement. Pulaski says churches have been preparing to welcome new refugees since the Biden administration took office.
As people of faith, as followers of Jesus, it's good news that we have churches lined up ready to serve vulnerable refugees.
Even with the previous ceiling of 15,000, only about 2,000 refugees had been allowed into the country as of March. Pulaski says the White House needs to move quickly to help those stuck in the pipeline right now.
Many of these people who are waiting have family here in the United States. So you may have a wife or some children that are overseas ready to be reunited with their family here in the United States. So it's essential that families are no longer separated.
Under the refugee program, thousands are expected to arrive from Asia, Africa, Latin America, and Europe in coming months. This as the White House also plans to increase admissions to 125,000 in the next fiscal year. George Thomas, CBN News.
All right, thank you, George. And here with us now is Matthew Sorens, the U.S. Director of Church Mobilization for World Relief. Matthew, welcome. Thank you for being with us. What do you think about the president's new cap, raising the cap on refugees?
Yeah, we're really encouraged by it. I mean, we were incredibly disappointed by the setting of the ceiling at 15,000 just a couple of weeks ago, and frankly, really surprised because it was completely inconsistent with what the Biden administration had committed to. But now that they've reversed that direction, and obviously having heard from a really broad range of Americans, from Christians, from people of other religious traditions, from Democrats, from Republicans, it seems like they got the message. And the president signed a new ceiling at that level of 62,500 that he had committed to just a couple of months ago. And we think that's a good thing for persecuted people around the world, including a lot of persecuted Christians and others who are, we're uniquely concerned for as followers of Jesus.
Matthew, you just mentioned persecuted Christians. I have to ask, what happened to all of those refugees who weren't allowed to come into the country under that previous cap of 15,000?
Well, it just means another year of waiting. I mean, I think one thing that many Americans may not realize is that by the time they get to the United States, most refugees have been waiting for often a decade or more, sometimes in a refugee camp setting, with limited ability to work, relying on humanitarian assistance, sometimes in a city, but usually still not authorized to work. So it's an incredibly challenging situation. And again, especially for those who are waiting for family members who are already here, it's just a deferral of that hope of being reunited to their family as well. So we're grateful that this will hopefully speed things up. Though I should say it's a necessary step to sign the ceiling. It's also only a first step, and there's a lot more that the Biden administration will need to do to really rebuild the refugee resettlement program.
Yeah. So, Matthew, for months, President Biden, he did leave in place the cap on refugee admissions from the previous administration. Why do you think it took him so long to come to this decision and lift it?
You know, I can't speak for the president on that, but it seems like it must have been a politically motivated decision because, people would say, well, there's COVID, and that's certainly true. But, we're at the point with vaccines and with testing where that really shouldn't be a limiting factor. And, of course, the reality is COVID was there in February when the administration announced its intention to go to 62,500 as well. That isn't a new dynamic. There is the challenge at the border, which is an important challenge, and we've been really clear about the concern for vulnerable kids, but it's a totally separate program. It's the State Department that runs the refugee resettlement program. It's other parts of our federal government that are responsible for unaccompanied children. So that really seems like a false reason to not resume the refugee resettlement program.
Matthew, what would be an ideal cap for world relief? What would you put that figure at for refugees?
It would take time to rebuild. So we're encouraged by President Biden's statement, which, of course, we've learned we're not just going to take as a promise, but hold him to go up to 125,000 refugees for the coming fiscal year. Frankly, we think it would be reasonable for the United States to take up to 1% of the world's refugees, which right now would be over 200,000 refugees. That's not unprecedented. If you go back to 1980, the refugee resettlement ceiling was more than 230,000, and we could do that as a nation. There's lots of churches and Christian organizations and volunteers eager to help welcome people.
All right, certainly a big need. Matthew Sorens with World Relief, thank you so much for being with us.
Yeah, thank you both.
Thank you, Matthew. Well, turning to the Supreme Court, tonight it will end its current term by hearing a case full of social justice implications.
That case looks at whether defendants with long sentences for low-level drug offenses can get sentencing relief under the 2018 First Step Act. CBN News White House correspondent Eric Phillips has more. Eric.
Well, John and Jenna, just to give some context, back in 2010, under President Barack Obama, the Fair Sentencing Act came to be, and that was designed to give low-level drug offenders a second chance in terms of their sentencing. Then, in 2018, under President Trump, the First Step Act was signed into law, making that 2010 law retroactive. But here's the thing, at question right now is who or who may not be eligible for this law. And that is the crux of this case.
Really like hell, like how they describe hell. Nobody can hear you screaming.
In 1998, at the age of 28, a judge sentenced Herman Tate to life in prison without parole for a low-level, non-violent drug offense. It also counted as his third strike.
Buried alive. Just imagine it. Putting you in a casket and you're alive. But you can stand up and walk around in it. That's what it is. You can't get out.
Under the law at that time, a person arrested for crack cocaine could face the same prison sentence as a person arrested for 100 times that amount of powdered cocaine. It carried huge racial and social justice implications that helped lead to major changes brought about in the Fair Sentencing Act of 2010 and the First Step Act of 2018. After nearly 22 years, Tate was given his freedom.
I just started crying.
Others, however, haven't been as fortunate. That's because of the question as to whether the opportunity for resentencing applies to so-called Tier 3 offenders, as in the case before the Supreme Court right now, Terry versus the United States. Taharik Terry was arrested in his early 20s in Florida for carrying just under 4 grams of crack cocaine, an amount which made him a Tier 3 offender. The public defender argues the law should apply to his client.
It enacted Section 404 to purge the taint of the discredited 100-to-1 disparity, To do that, it gave all crack offenders sentenced under that old regime an opportunity to seek a reduced sentence.
Several of the justices, though, are hung up on the law's wording and are hesitant to widen its scope.
So if you win this case, I don't see what's to prevent any person, certainly who convicted of any drug, felony, career criminal, from going out and asking, Judge, resentence me.
It's a case the court continues to mull.
Thank you, Matthew. Welcome home.
Under the specter of bipartisan efforts of two administrations to even out the scales of justice.
We incarcerate more people than any other country in the world. It's a stain on our democracy.
This case raises questions about the methods Congress must employ when reforming punishments retroactively and how dedicated the machinery of government must be in undoing past harms. John and Jenna.
All right, Eric, thank you. And coming up, the COVID crisis in India, now with some 20 million cases. The latest next.
Hey, if you're tired and exhausted all day, you can't think clearly, and you really just need a cup or even a pot of coffee to get through your day, then join me, Dr. Josh Axe, for this new series where I'm going to teach you how to transform your diet and use essential oils and supplements to get a better night's sleep.
Wake up to your best life. Call 1-800-700-7000 to get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
It's about the competition.
I kind of put that pressure on myself, and I think people had expectations.
It's about overcoming.
We use this phrase all the time, keep chopping, keep practicing hard.
It's about going the distance.
I think as a father, it's my job, to lead, just be the best husband and father I can be.
Watch Going the Distance with Sean Brown Saturday night at 7:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Orphans Promise is committed to loving and serving at-risk children, to helping keep families together, and to creating opportunities for strong and sustainable communities around the world. We're working in over 60 countries around the world, and with your help, we can do even more. There's an old African proverb I love that says, if you want to run fast, run alone. But if you want to run far, run together. At Orphans Promise, we want to run far so we can touch the lives of as many orphaned and vulnerable children as possible. But we don't want to go alone. We're out to change the world, one child, one family, one community at a time. Will you join us?
Welcome back. Well, tonight the president is moving the goalposts, setting a new benchmark of getting a shot in the arm of 70% of all Americans by the 4th of July.
The new standard coincides with an announcement of redistributing vaccine shots to states based on demand. Today at the White House, President Biden said COVID cases are down in 40 states.
Now, where do we go from here? Well, as we anticipated, the pace of vaccination is slowing. Now the majority of American adults have already gotten their first shot. But we're still vaccinating millions of Americans every day.
And the president said the next phase will focus on 3 areas. First, children between the ages of 12 and 15, convenience to make it easier for Americans to get the vaccine, and finally, incentives for overcoming vaccine hesitancy. Well, as the U.S. seems to be turning a corner in the fight against the pandemic, India is taking a turn for the worse. Today, India surpassed the 20 million case mark, adding over 350,000 cases in the past 24 hours, with the death rising by nearly 3,500. The death toll now at 222,000. As the virus devastates the country, there have been more than 300,000 new daily cases of COVID-19 for 13 straight days.
Well, here now for more is Dr. Jen Ashton, Chief Medical Correspondent for ABC News. Welcome back, Dr. Ashton. Let's start with the grave situation in India. Two-part question. What's behind this second surge? And secondly, how does that affect the rest of the world beyond India?
Well, a lot to unpack there and really important questions. In terms of what's behind it, there's really no one clear answer. Some of the leading theories, the uneven distribution of the virus in that population, in that country, with 1.4 billion people. You know, in December, epidemiologists with testing and models estimated that half the population had already been naturally infected. But clearly what we're seeing here with over 300,000 new cases every day, and them unfortunately setting grim milestones of highest daily death counts right now, it's not, there's something else going on. It could be double variants that are more transmissible and more deadly. And right now, only 2% of the population has been vaccinated. So this is a dire, critical medical crisis, a humanitarian crisis that not only is affecting that country, but literally has ripple effects around the world. 60% of vaccines are made in India. There's supply chain issues, there's transportation and travel issues with people coming out of that country who may be infected. So this is a very, very serious situation for sure.
We know that they're getting global help. Speaking of which, the Biden administration today announced a shift in vaccine allocations due to the declining demand, essentially sending doses to states that have greater demand rather than population size. Dr. Ashton, what does that change signal to you?
Well, you know, we have to remember that the entire world needs this vaccine or vaccines. So if people aren't taking it here or they don't want it, it will be shunted or sent to places that do want and need it. You know, time is of the essence. Literally every day matters because it does take at least 2 weeks to get the full immune protection after the 2-dose regimen, 2 weeks after the single-dose Johnson & Johnson vaccine. So every day matters. The clock is ticking. This virus continues to spread. It continues to do damage, not just in terms of hospitalizations and deaths, but the post-COVID syndrome, the so-called long haulers, having debilitating symptoms oftentimes that last for 6 months or more. And this is a global pandemic. So everyone needs these vaccines, and many places want them that don't have them. So if people are not taking them here, it's only a matter of time. It's the right thing to do ethically and medically to send them to the places that do. But we are not across the finish line yet here in the United States, although there has been a lot of good news recently that I find very encouraging.
Dr. Ashton, as a practicing medical professional, you know, when you look at all these different things between vaccine hesitancy, reports of younger people contracting the virus and being hospitalized, and with what you just mentioned earlier, the spread of variants, what concerns you most at this stage?
What concerns me most is that we'll see kind of a two-tiered or bifurcation in our population where, you know, most people will be vaccinated and they'll be protected and they'll be able to travel and go to sporting events and do certain things. And then there'll be a percentage, a significant percentage, 30% maybe, who will not be vaccinated, who will continue to get sick, continue to suffer long COVID syndrome, symptoms that can have a major impact on their quality of life and our economy, continue to require hospitalizations, and unfortunately continue to succumb to this virus. And that's preventable. So I think that people need to look at the data from these clinical trials now, understanding that they have been authorized, some of these vaccines now since December in the United States, that their safety profile is excellent and their efficacy has outperformed what any scientist thought that it could be. And right now, it is the single most important tool in our toolbox.
Important and timely reminders. Dr. Jen Ashton with ABC News, thank you so much for your time today. When we come back, the issue that has American Catholic bishops weighing whether to deny President Biden one of the 7 sacraments of the Catholic Church.
Daddy?
Yeah, buddy.
How many nickels are in a dollar?
There are 20 nickels in a dollar.
How do birds fly? Does milk really make my bones stronger?
Yeah.
Daddy, when we die, will we go to heaven?
Do you have the answer to life's biggest question? Call the 700 Club. We'll help you find answers to the important questions life brings your way.
Watch breaking news, in-depth exclusive stories and programs from health to entertainment you won't find anywhere else. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. Enjoy credible news reporting from around the world. Discover inspiring programs and stories of hope, all in one place from a Christian perspective. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. To watch the CBN News Channel, download the app or visit cbnnewschannel.com.
Hello, I'm Dr. David Perlmutter, board-certified neurologist and #1 New York Times bestselling author. Wouldn't it be great to boost your energy, eliminate brain fog, and even reverse brain disease? Well, you can, and I'm going to show you how, along with some of the world's most well-respected brain experts in this DVD, Protect Your Brain.
Get Protect Your Brain, a free DVD only from the Christian Broadcasting Network, featuring experts on the cutting edge of neuroscience and brain health.
No matter how many times you've failed in the past, you really can do this.
In Protect Your Brain, you'll discover simple strategies to keep your brain young and healthy. Improve your memory. Discover the gut-brain connection. In Protect Your Brain. Get your free copy at cbn.com or call 1-800-700-7000.
If you want to improve the quality of your life, get the DVD Protect Your Brain and get it today.
Catholic bishops are set to decide whether to press President Biden to stop taking communion over the president's support for abortion. Matthew Bunson, the Washington bureau chief at EWTN, the global Catholic network, told CBN News that America's second Catholic president is, quote, a self-professed Catholic whose actions are contrary to the teaching of the Church.
To have a Catholic who's presenting himself or herself for communion while publicly in open dissent the teachings of the Church, this is a source of confusion for people. And for the bishops, this is a teaching moment. It's an important teaching moment.
Well, here with us now for more is Father Thomas Reese. He's a Jesuit Catholic priest and senior analyst at Religion News Service. Father, thank you again for being with us. The Catholic bishops in the United States meet in June for their next annual meeting. Where do bishops stand on how to deal with President Biden?
Well, the bishops are clearly unhappy with President Biden's position on abortion. They have been very clear in their position and what they have been saying about this. But the whole communion question here is something else. And that's is a story that keeps popping up periodically, but really, frankly, has very little foundation. The Bishops' Conference, which meets in June, has absolutely no authority to tell President Biden that he cannot go to communion. Under canon law, they do not have that authority. Cardinal Ratzinger, when he was head of the Congregation for Doctrine of the Faith under John Paul II, made very clear that bishops' conferences have only limited authority. The only person that has authority over who goes to communion in his diocese is the local bishop. So for Washington, D.C., that is Cardinal Wilton Gregory, who has made clear that he is going to allow President Biden to go to communion.
Yeah, even so, can President Biden have it both ways? Can he be a Catholic and still support abortion rights?
Well, that's a question we'd have to also address to over half of American Catholics, because we know from public opinion polls that Catholics are in favor of legalized abortion. They're, you know, most Catholics don't like abortion. And I think most Catholics agree with the Church's teaching that it's immoral. But then there's the second question about whether or not it should be legal or not. And that's where most American Catholics, including the president, disagree with the bishops. And so this is a problem the bishops have of how are they going to convince their own flock, let alone the American public, of their position that abortion should be illegal. They got a real challenge ahead of them to do that.
Real quickly here, in a one-word answer, yes or no, do you think that the Catholic bishops can agree to disagree with the president's position on abortion but still work with him on other areas?
Oh, absolutely. The bishops are quite good at doing that. Even during the Trump administration, when they worked with him on abortion and gender issues, they disagreed with him violently.
Father Reese, we are out of time,
on the issue of immigration.
We are out of time, unfortunately. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Good to be with you.
And still ahead, a marathon without mileage, this unique tradition taking place across the country.
I am Region's first ROTC graduate student.
I'm Ephraim Graham, and this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
The fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Wednesday night at 8:30 on the CBN News Channel.
How'd you like to get a redo on your health, on your body, on your arteries, so you could have the energy you had 20 years ago? The great news is you can. I'm Dr. Mike Roizen, chair of the Wellness Institute at the Cleveland Clinic. I've written 4 New York Times bestsellers. But even better than having to read all that, you can listen to this DVD and watch it. Protect your heart? Yes, you can. Here's how.
Go to cbn.com or call 1-800-700-7000 for your free copy of Protect Your Heart. Let the medical experts show you their new discoveries on how to avoid heart disease and even reverse it. Easy steps to uncover the hidden dangers in your medicine cabinet, reduce stress, and get a complete do-over for your health. Call 1-800-700-7000. That's 1-800-700-7000. Or go to cbn.com to claim your free copy of Protect Your Heart.
Finally tonight, hundreds of Christians are stepping up to the podium to participate in a scripture reading marathon.
Now, there's no running involved, but participants need plenty of endurance as they read the entire Bible over 90 consecutive hours.
The voice of them that shall say, praise the Lord of hosts. For the Lord is good, for his mercy endureth forever.
Prior to the pandemic, the Bible Marathon brought hundreds to the steps of the U.S. Capitol and state capitol buildings. Organizers say the tradition recognizes the Bible is at the heart of America's founding principles and should be voiced at the heart of our nation.
All right, keeping the tradition alive. Well, that does it for Faith Nation.
Have a great night. See you tomorrow.